Hi everyone, it's Dr. Adeela Afiz and we are here to get started on our second Zoom event, which is free for this series. Today we are going to be talking about body whispering in kids and why it is that I work with so many kids, what are the results that I get with kids, why kids are free to come along to a body whispering class, and how to help the kids in your life, whether you are a parent, a caregiver, a teacher, a facilitator. I work with a lot of kids and I'm increasingly working with kids, and so with the results that I'm getting and the changes that I'm seeing, I kind of got to a point where I had to start talking about it because I know my work with adults is amazing and adults can talk about it and they share amongst themselves, but often when there's kids, parents can feel really isolated when there's an issue, or parents don't realize what things can help or can contribute to their kids. And also, if you are a facilitator or even a teacher or a caregiver that has kids that may be struggling, or you wish that you could help them in a particular area of their life, sometimes you just don't have the confidence to do that because you don't know what to say or how to say it or how to help these kids. So the point of me sharing the work that I do is not only to help give you some of my experience and to hopefully help you to help others, but it's also to give you information that you maybe just have never received before, and at some point in your life, if not now, is going to contribute to the people in your life as well as yourself. If you have children, or if you are a child that's listening to this or watching this, I'm really excited to be here because I love working with kids, and like I said, I work with more and more kids, and I work with them from the time that they're a baby. In fact, I work with women as pregnant women, so I work with babies from when they're in utero. And then I see them from as young as a few days to a few weeks old, all the way through to toddlers, infants, school-age children, and teenagers and adolescents. And at every point of that, through that timeline, there are times and places where what we do to help these kids can make the world of difference, not only for them now, but going forward in the future. And so that's what I wanted to talk about and share with you guys today. So there's a couple of probably areas where this information is most relevant or really relevant, and there may also be questions that come up, or you may have specific questions that you want to ask around your child or someone that you know, or you may have more generic questions if you work with kids or are a facilitator, or want to know just in general other scenarios or situations that may come up or that you would be able to help with. So when I talk about body whispering in kids, body whispering, and we covered this in the last video that we did, so if you weren't on here, or if you are wondering what I'm talking about when I refer to body whispering, if you have a look on my YouTube channel, which is dradeelaafiz.com, or even even just have a look on Facebook, or send me an email, adeela@dradeelaafiz.com. We can forward you the other videos in this series. There was one last week, which is what on earth is body whispering, and the one next week is going to be on how body whispering pertains to finances and business. But today it's about kids. It's about the future of kids, and it's about kids in our homes and in our lives. And so when I'm talking about body whispering, I'm talking about what I do when I work with kids, which is either on the body or off the body. So people might bring kids in to see me for a variety of reasons, or kids might come to a body whispering class for a variety of reasons. They may have absolutely nothing wrong with them. It's more about, them stepping into their capacities. I've had kids come along, and because they have a real ability to work with bodies, and they're little healers, and they just giving them the confidence of like, yeah, follow the energy, put your hands on people, you are creating a change. That's one reason that kids come along to the body whispering classes. The other reasons range from anything, including traumatic childbirth, traumatic childhood, anything that's happened that might affect the parents, the children, or the entire family unit. Kids that are struggling in schools, kids that have academically struggle with either a particular part, for example, just handwriting and reading, or math, or being able to just sit down and absorb the information, or be able to sit still long enough to be able to participate in school. Sometimes that's an issue. To the other end of the spectrum, where we have gifted kids and highly talented kids who actually need help with being able to channel all that information into a productive way. So when I talk about gifted kids or kids that are struggling, I'm not making a delineation and saying you've got dumb kids and you've got smart kids, because the point of this is that all kids are brilliant, just like all humans and humanoids and people in bodies. We are all brilliant. We all have brilliance inside of us. We all have our own gifts and our own capacities. And body whispering, no matter who you are, is about tapping into what your particular gifts and capacities are and really working to them, really working to your strengths while you're here on this planet. And what that creates is a life that's very congruent with you and for you. And when you have congruence, when you have a high level of congruence, you often have a high level of success in what you do. You have a high level of happiness. You have a high level of feeling fulfilled and feeling content with your life, because you're working in a way that works best for you. And so body whispering is about finding out what that way is, what those talents are, what those capacities are for you as an adult. And when I'm working with kids, it's that same conversation, but there may be a slight difference in how I deal with kids, because they're much quicker, there's less need to fluff about, there's less need for me to mince words, and often we can energetically just go in and change things without needing to talk you through it like I have to with adults, okay? So going back to that conversation around kids who are struggling either at school or socially, I'm working with a lot of kids with increasing amounts of anxiety, who get panic attacks, who are highly sensitive kids. And often a lot of these things go together. Like I could almost tell you a couple of set molds, if you like, of what these kids come in, and they all have these characteristics that fit into these particular habits and ways of being. And so for example, highly sensitive children are children that take on a lot of information and a lot of energy from their environment and the people that they're around. What that presents as is children who can be quite emotionally volatile. Their parents think that these kids can have a tantrum at the drop of a hat, or that the kids are hard to communicate with. It's actually because these kids get so much information, they don't know how to process it all, and they don't know what's theirs and what isn't. So then you have kids that are really emotionally up and down, and then as a need for release, what they do is these kids end up having a tantrum. And the tantrum is almost like a reset button. I, talk to these parents about the fact that often these kids have had to hold it together all day long while they're at school, and in school surrounded by their friends and their teachers, and they've needed to behave and needed to try and keep up with the class and try and pretend that they are fitting in. And as soon as they get into the car, or as soon as they get home, they have a meltdown, because they're just so exhausted from emotionally and physically and physiologically trying to hold it together all day. So that's just one kind of prototype of kid that I'm talking about, but that's quite common as to some of the things that present to me in clinic, or when I'm working with clients one-on-one, wherever in the world that is. So children that, as I was saying, social anxiety, social pressure, depression, these are all things that we're dealing with. Dealing with depression at a younger and younger age, dealing with high levels of anxiety and panic attacks at a younger and younger age, dealing with kind of all of the social things that are going on for kids and helping them work through it, dealing with changes as they go through puberty, sexuality, sexualness, all of those things. And then also just making kids feel like they are okay and that there's nothing wrong with them, and that there's someone that understands them, understands who they are and what works for them and what doesn't work for them. And I'm going to talk about these points more. I know I'm kind of rambling on right now. There's just so much information that I have in my head about this topic. You know, I'm seeing so many. I've just been at work for a couple of hours because it's a Saturday and I had a speaking engagement in the morning. So I did quite a short shift today, but I still saw 4 or 5 kids, ranging from babies through to I think they were to primary school children today. And so in an average day in the clinic, I'll see anywhere from, 4 to 10 kids in a day, and then adult clients on top of that. So it's like the need for this is really growing. The need for people to find a place and people that understand what's going on for their children, because when something impacts the child, it impacts the parents, it impacts the whole family, it impacts their education, it impacts their social well-being. This is why this is such an important topic for me, and one that's so close to my heart, is because you can not only change this child's life, you can change their entire family's dynamics. So that is a little introduction. And in terms of how I apply body whispering to kids, I will go through and elaborate on that as we go through the call or the session today. I do a combination, just like with adults, I do a combination of verbal facilitation, which means I talk to them just like I'm here talking to you guys now. I do hands-on body work. Sometimes that looks like a chiropractic adjustment. Sometimes that looks like energy work. Sometimes that's running their bars, which is the access consciousness bars that I'm talking about. So for those of you that aren't familiar with access consciousness, it's one of the modalities that I use a lot. It's one of the foundation tools that I use a lot for my practice and how I work with all of my clients. So if you want more information on that, you can look up access consciousness. I will tell people what I'm doing so that they know, they know what each modality is, they know what I'm doing, and they know how to ask me for more information, or I'll give them a brochure on it, or whatever that is. But I'm basically letting people know that I have the ability to help their kids. And if you are a facilitator, or if you are someone who works with kids or wants to work with kids, you've just got to be confident enough you don't need to worry about explaining what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. You just actually have to let them know that you're willing to help, and the chances are that you can help, because that's what's required from both sides. You just need the kid to show up, and you need you to be willing to be able to help, and to be willing to have an attitude and and the willingness, I guess, to receive whatever shows up and to help them through it. And you're already streets ahead, because these kids often just need, like, you'd be amazed at the stuff that comes out of their mouth. Like, sometimes I think, it's going to be so hard to figure out what's going on here. And then you just ask the kid, and the kid will tell you. I'm lucky because, like I said, I use energy work, or I can just look at a child or look at a body or energetically have a conversation with them, or kind of tap into their mind and ask them what's going on, and they will tell me, they will respond. And if you're wondering how on earth to do that, the first thing I would say to you is just give it a go. just give it a go and see what comes up. When you're working with people, actually, if you're working with people, if you're working with children, or if you're working with animals, if something pops into your head, or if you get a gut instinct or a gut feeling around something, follow it. If I'm working with a child and a thought or an emotion or a feeling or an idea pops up into my head, or a concept around something, even though it might seem like it's completely unrelated, I will ask them about it, or I'll ask the parent about it, because you'd be amazed at your intuition and how when you're willing to trust your gut instinct and follow your intuition, how on the money you are. So that's one of the reasons I think I'm so successful with kids, is because I've realized and I've managed to stop thinking and overthinking about it. I'm actually really now at a place where I trust the work that I do. I really trust in the work, and I believe in the work. And I talked about this a lot in the last video that we did last week. I really trust the work, and I really allow the work to lead me. And for me to just, be the facilitator, just be the thing or the person that's facilitating the healing or facilitating the session, but not needing to overthink it, not needing to plan it, not need to worry about whether it's going to work or not, because that's out of my hands, that's out of my control. And when you get to that place, you will be amazed at the results that you do get, and how quickly you get results. And to be honest, I'm often surprised at the massive changes after 1 or 2 sessions. Like, these kids will come back after the first session and the parents are just amazed, and then the second session, and then the parents are just amazed again. And so and there's a few things in there that I can and will talk about as well, around the parents and around what's going on for these kids and why these kids are presenting as they do in the first place. So I'll just pause, as I need to remember to do every so often, and ask if there's any questions. Otherwise we will keep going. And if you do have questions, you're able to just type them into the box, or to ask me, just yell out and I'll respond. So kids, there's often 3 things that I'm finding with kids, that when I'm working with them, there's usually 3 things going on. Kids are a reflection of their environment or their parents. So when I get kids brought in for behavioral issues, kids who, for whatever behavior they're exhibiting, whether they're being disruptive, highly disobedient, having lots of tantrums or meltdowns, not being able to concentrate at school, feeling very anxious, not getting along with anyone, giving their parents or their other siblings a really hard time. Kids are a reflection of their environment or their parents. So while I do work with the kid, it doesn't take me long to realize that, that kid is actually just either reflecting back to the parents what they're feeling. So often there's an anxious parent involved, or there's disharmony between the parents, or there's disharmony in the home, or they're really picking up on a lot of conflict or anxiety or whatever is happening in that child's environment. So your child is the perfect barometer for you to look at that child's behavior, and this is from when they're a baby. This is why I do so much kinesiology work with the babies that come in. It's because I don't need to do talking. The babies don't need to be able to talk. I muscle test the parents to see which emotion is coming up. And parents say to me all the time, how could a baby be feeling stressed? What is a baby anxious about? Or why is a baby angry? And it's actually the baby's picking up on the mum's anger at the dad, or the baby's picking up on the mum's anxiety over her lack of milk supply, or the baby's picking up on the highly stressed out financial situation the entire family is in. And that baby is just a reflection of what's going on in that environment, or what the parents are feeling. So kind of my number one tool or tip is to really look at what's going on for you if you are the parent, or what's going on between you and the other parent in the situation, or what's going on in the environment. And if there is a lot of disharmony, if there's a lot of stress, if there's a lot of pressure, or if there's a lot of uncertainty around anything, that is probably what that child is responding to. And I have parents all the time say to me, yes, this is going on, but we never let on to the child or the baby. Like, we never argue in front of the child, or the baby doesn't know because we only talk about it, or it's always in a different room, or it sleeps in a different room, or whatever. And I say to that, like, it really doesn't matter. I really don't care how far away you think you are when you're having these conversations, or how asleep you think your child is. Your child is a non-verbal communicator for the first few years of its life. And until the age at least of 10, that child more believes the energy and picks up and reads the energy or the vibration of you and your environment, not what comes out of your mouth. So, you know, we as adults we adopt verbal communication as the primary mode of communication later on in life, because that's what everyone else does. That's what we're expected to do. And then we start to believe that what comes out of people's mouth is the truth, and that's the only information we're meant to rely on. And we forget that for the first however many years of life, we were non-verbal communicators, and we relied on touch, we relied on gut instinct, we relied on energetic vibration and energy to have that communication with our parents. And so children, especially highly sensitive children, don't need you to tell them when you're upset or sad or stressed. They already know. And if you're in a situation where that stress is prolonged, or you are often stressed or in a highly volatile emotional situation, that child is a reflection of that. So that's number one. Number two, like I talked about, that child that's highly sensitive, has lots of meltdowns. What I see a lot of is kids who are hyper aware, are hypersensitive, and don't know how to deal with the amount of information that they pick up on. And what that results in is a tantrum or a meltdown to be able to dissipate or shed or let go of. You know how if you've had a long day at work, or you've had a tough day, you'll come home and you'll say, I need a drink, or you'll need to go out and let some steam off, or you might be able to go out for a run, or depending on how aware you are as an adult, you know what things you need to do when you're feeling like you're overwhelmed or you've taken on a lot that day. Well, kids don't know how to say that. They don't know to come home and say, oh man, I've picked up so much stuff today, and there's so much going on, and I'm picking up on everyone's energy. I need some quiet time. They have a meltdown. So that's one of the biggest reasons that I see kids with behavioral issues when it comes to kids who are having lots of tantrums or meltdowns. So for them, very effective to get their bars run, absolutely. And also I always teach them, there's a couple of access consciousness tools. One of them is, who does this belong to? And returning it to sender. So I just say to kids, you know, when you're at school, like just throughout the day, when you start feeling sad, or you start feeling angry, or someone's annoyed you, I just want you to say, who does this belong to? And return it to sender, even if you don't know who it belongs to. And you can teach that little tool to kids as young as, 4 or 5, and I have. And they don't need to get it. They just need to be able to have that as a concept, or to just be able to say those words, and it still works. And lastly, I see kids really struggling and parents actually struggling as well when no one has been able to identify what works best for that kid, like what type of kid this is and what environment or situation will work the best for this kid. So you've got a kid that hasn't been taught or given the tools that are going to help it deal really well with whether it's education, whether it's social situations, whether it's integrating with family, whether it's verbal communication. For some kids, those things are not a given. It doesn't come naturally to them. And when that isn't picked up by parents or educators of whoever it is, and if that kid isn't given a little bit of time to and some of the tools to adjust better, or if we don't alter or slightly change those environments to work better for that child, you then have a child that really struggles with life. It all just seems really hard because they're trying really hard to operate in a system or in a paradigm that does not work for them. And that could be many things. When kids come in to see me, I use muscle testing a lot to find out what works for them and what doesn't. So I test everything from food through to environment like sleeping, their bedrooms. I muscle test what time they should sleep, what time they should have a nap, what they should eat for breakfast. That, and that might seem like a lot of work, but we don't need to do that with every child. It's just the children who are highly sensitive to environment or situations. I literally have children that are hypersensitive and they can't wear certain clothes, they can't be in certain environments because they're super sensitive to chemicals or they're super sensitive to grass or pollen or whatnot. So these kids will often not only be highly sensitive to energy and to information and to emotions. Not only will they be highly emotionally sensitive and aware, they are also going to be highly sensitive and aware of things in the environment. So they might be highly sensitive to chemicals, highly sensitive to pollutants in the air, highly sensitive to certain foods, and often a lot of those very common irritants or very common things such as dairy and gluten and wheat may not work for them or their bodies either. So it's a combination of finding out what works for this child in an emotional setting, what works for this child in an environmental setting in terms of what can you add or take away from their environment that would be a contribution to them, and then finding out how this child, if they're old enough, how this child learns, what's going to be the most effective way to get this child to, are they a visual learner, are they kinesthetic, are they auditory, like letting them have what works for them be the predominant way you communicate or you allow them to learn. And those are often the things that, we try and take children and make them fit into our systems, whether it's the education system or how the routine we want to have at home or whatnot, rather than realizing that all of these children are such a gift and what can we do to change the environment or the system so that it works better for them, so that the environment and the system fits in around the child rather than the other way around. We just have such high rates of children with labels and disabilities and disadvantaged and all sorts of things. And that's actually not what's going on here. But it is also really exciting that just with doing a few things like with the body whispering, with access consciousness, with finding teachers and parents and caregivers who are aware enough and willing to step out of the box and be a little bit different, that we can make such a difference for these kids. And it's amazing because the longer these kids are, the more I get into these sessions with these kids and I talk about what's going on for this child, the parents will actually say, oh yeah, I was exactly like that as a child. Or that was me when I was a little boy. That was me when I was a little girl. But I could never get it to work for me, and then I had to adapt, or I had to change, or I still feel misunderstood, or I still feel like I don't fit in. And now their child is feeling that way. So this is about really starting to create this paradigm shift of not needing to make our children work into our systems and paradigms. Let's make it work for them. They are our future, and they are here to teach us something. So let's receive from them. Children are so intelligent. I don't really talk down or simplify or over dumb down my communication with the children. As I said, I either just have those energetic or very quick psychic conversations with them and get what they're saying anyway, or if I am having a verbal conversation with them, I ask them questions as I would an adult. And if there's a word in there that, and if I use a hard word, or if I know that a concept is highly advanced, I would state it as I would to an adult, and then I'll say what I mean by that is, and then I might break it down into easier language or explain it to them in a way they would understand. But the reason I give it to them as an adult concept is because these kids are often so bright and so intelligent, they can get the energy of what I'm saying anyway. It's just like when you have a baby. Your baby knows what you're saying to them, even though they don't understand the words. They know you're saying, oh, are you hungry? Is it time for you to have a feed? Not because of the word feed, but because energetically they know that you're about to pull out the bottle or pull out the boob. They are that in tune and in touch and aware with you. So, rather than trying to get out of that, rather than really trying to focus on verbal communication, I'm more than happy to use non-verbal communication as the primary way of how I communicate with kids, and it's really beautiful. It's really amazing, and the parents are always amazed, and I'm always pleasantly surprised that a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old will get up on my table and they will lie there perfectly still, perfectly relaxed, perfectly happy for 20 minutes or for a whole session, and let me do the energy work, let me run their bars, let me talk to them, let me help their bodies. And it's because they know that what I'm doing is helping. It's because they know, if they've already been there before, that they felt better afterwards the last time, so they're happy for me to do it again. Often the parents will say, oh, they were really happy about coming back, or they talked a lot about you after we left. Kids just want to be accepted and understood and validated, and that is our job and that is our role, whether it's as their parents and caregivers, or as their teachers or educators, or healthcare practitioners like I am. That is what it's our job to do. It's to really help not make these kids feel like they're safe, that they're valuable, and that what they have to say and think in this world is worthy of our time and attention. So, when you are in a situation where you are really increasingly frustrated with your child, or a situation with your child is really frustrating you, have a look at what's going on for you. Have a look at your internal conversation, your communication with yourself, your frustration levels. Often your child is just going to be reflecting back to you how you are presenting to them, not externally, but internally, because they don't need you to tell them how they're feeling on the inside for them to be quite aware of it. So that's quite a bit of information. I'm just trying to think what else you might want to know about. Kids with diagnoses, kids with learning difficulties, kids in schools. So I work with lots of kids who either have, issues or difficulties or struggle at school. or kids who have a diagnosis. Most commonly it's ADHD, and they're on some form of medication. The other kind of quite large cohort that's coming through now is these kids that don't have a diagnosis. Their parents know something is not quite right, or they are really struggling, or they're not operating at the level that they should be for their age group or their peers, but they actually don't qualify or don't meet the criteria for a diagnosis. So they haven't been diagnosed as dyslexic or ADHD or sensory processing disorder, but they are somewhere on that spectrum. And I deal with those kids a lot because they don't have a problem per se, but something's not working quite right. And the parents are really frustrated because the school or the testing system has told them that there's nothing wrong with their kid, so there's nothing stopping their kid should be performing better, but they're not. And that's where this work really, creating a safe environment and space for that child emotionally, and then following it up with the work that that child needs, either physically, energetically, or nutritionally. And that's what body whispering is about. Body whispering is about finding out what you or your body or your child's body may need. Do they need to see a certain practitioner? Do they need to add something to their diet or take it out? Do they need to see a nutritionist? Do they need to see a chiropractor? Do they need to see someone who's going to work on their organ systems? Do they need someone to balance their hormones? What is going on for this child that if we balanced those things out or contributed to their body, it would actually help them function better? Because often these things, they are functioning at an impaired level or state because their body or them don't have the help that they need. So often, when I talk about energy work or when I talk about running their bars, it's helping them clear out all of that energy that they've picked up, that's everyone else's, any negative energy that they've picked up, any worry or stress that they've picked up, and whatever way you can help them to let that go. I have lots of parents that use like a meditation app or play meditation music for their child now before they go to sleep. Or can you do a kids yoga session with your child? Do they need to go see a doctor? Do they need medication? Does your child need probiotics? I could talk forever on the different things that can help a child, nutritionally, supplement-wise, in terms of every area of their life. But body whispering is about listening to your gut instinct when you are that child's parent or facilitator and saying, actually, you know what's reading? I think your child needs to get off sugar. Or I think your child needs more B vitamins. Or I think your child, needs to get out and exercise more. Is your child getting any fresh air? Maybe your child needs to take their shoes off and walk outside in the grass so they can be grounded more. Maybe that child is overstimulated. So you need to do some deep pressure massage. You need to get them a weighted blanket. You need to cut out a lot of the sound and the noise and the light in their room. Or maybe your child is understimulated. Maybe you need to take them to a chiropractor and get their nervous system firing again. Maybe you need to do some sensory motor processing exercises. Maybe you need to take them to an occupational therapist. Maybe you need to get them outside playing in the mud. I don't know. But those are some of the things that I look at and I consider when I'm working with children. And I'm telling you this so that you can start to look at, or you can start to broaden the range of things that you consider when you have a child in front of you, or you have your own child that's struggling with a certain area of their life. Look at all of these things and look at what could be added or what could be taken away from their environment or their life or their body that would be a contribution to them. Okay, so I am going to start wrapping up. I think I've covered a lot of things that I was wanting to talk about. Yeah, our next class, our next physical class, body whispering class, is in Mumbai in September. Like I've said, the body whispering classes for children under 16 are free of charge when they come along with, a paying adult. Those classes, we not only teach children how to deal with these things, deal with school, deal with bullying, deal with whatever's going on for them in their life. Often these children are also highly capable healers or highly capable body workers, and they love the elements of that class where it empowers you to get on the table and work on people. And so it's always a treat for me as the facilitator to have children in my classes, but it also is for the other people in the class, because the energy that they have and the ability that kids have to just be no point of view and take their healing capacities for granted, or to be able to change something for you and it's that quick, and they didn't have a point of view about how long it would take and what it means and how significant it is really cool. My last point is I will make, I talked about this in another video, is when I have kids that get sick all the time or are often sick, one of the things that I ask parents or I ask the child is if they are a healer or if they have healing capacities. And often children as well as adults, but with children it's harder because they're sick all the time and they don't know why, or they feel ill all the time. And especially if it's illness or sickness that, they have an upset tummy, or they feel sad or scared or vulnerable alongside having symptoms in their stomach, if they're nauseous, if they throw up a lot, if they get bugs a lot, if they are under the weather or bedridden a lot. Is your child a healer? And so what that means is that these children pick up on things from others that are around them, or pick up on things in their environment, and they try and heal people. But what they end up doing is taking stuff into their own bodies. And then you have children that are sick a lot. And as these children turn into older kids and teenagers, it can really start to be highly disruptive to their life because they're in bed sick every couple of days or every other week. So a great question you can ask them is, are you a healer? And would you be prepared to stop pulling stuff out of other people's bodies, or everything that you have taken on from other people? Would you please be willing to return it to them? And whatever exercise you want to do, there's plenty of stuff available online around how to either, energetically protect you, or to create a white light aura, or to do something to protect them, teach them a tip or a trick to help them protect their energy and to stop taking stuff on from everyone that they see, especially those people that are unwell, so that their body isn't suffering a lot. So that just popped into my mind to tell you guys. So I hope this has been of value to you, and I hope this has been of value to all of the wonderful children in the world. I really do love working with kids, and if you have questions, comments or queries, feel free to either post it to me on Facebook or to send me an email at Adeela@dradeelaafiz.com. And I would love to see as many of you as possible at our class in Mumbai, which will be September 25th to 26th at the Novotel in Juhu. And if you are in India, or even if you're not from India, you can contact me, or you can contact Aradhana, Tulika or Sonali, and they all have all the information that you would need, or if you'd like to register. So thank you so much, everyone, and have an amazing rest of your day. Take care.